Let's talk about books. Let's talk about my most anticipated releases of 2023. Let's start off with A Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This is the spin-off of the Falk of the Air trilogy, and this one's gonna follow Jude's little brother Oak and some changeling princess, I believe. There's really not much information on this on Goodreads. The book is actually already out as I'm speaking. It came out January 3rd. I honestly just can't wait to get back to Elfhame because I really love the setting and the vibes. Next is They're Watching You by Chelsea Chasso. This one also came out January 3rd. This one gives me a good girl's guide to murder / inheritance games, but make it dark academia. This is set at this private boarding school following this girl Marin, whose best friend and roommate Polly disappears. But for some reason, all of the adults, the teachers, the principal, even Polly's parents think that she's just a runaway. Marin is like, absolutely not, I don't think this is right. Something's fishy here. So she goes on to investigate her own best friend's disappearance, and as a result of her little sleuthing, she finds an invitation amongst Polly's stuff to join the Game Master Society, and she soon finds out that the Game Master Society is obviously a secret society hidden within the schools, and it's run by some of the richest kids in school. So she takes this invitation and goes to the initiation, and the initiation process involves some Squid Games type stuff, like some deadly games and puzzles, but she still goes through with it because they told her that with every level she completes, with every game or puzzle that she completes, she gets a clue about Polly. It sounds juicy, it sounds like it's gonna be fun. Marin is like giving me Pippa Moby vibes, which I love. The little puzzles and games set at the sporting school is somehow giving me the inheritance games vibe, so I have very high hopes for this one. And then we have Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Emily Wen Zhao. This one is a YA fantasy inspired by Chinese mythology that also critiques colonialism and the whitewashing of their culture as a result of colonialism. It follows Lan, who is an orphan. Her original name actually wasn't Lan. Lan was the name that was given to her by the Atlantean colonizers after they had invaded her city, killed her mom, but right before her mom was killed, she actually left a mark on Lan's arm. But this mark can't be seen by anybody else except Lan, and she doesn't really know what it means. Her mom didn't have enough time to explain it to her. She just knows that she's the only one who can see it. Until she met this boy Zen, who can somehow see this mark on her arm, and she finds out that Zen is actually part of a small community who still uses magic. Magic is now illegal because the Atlantean colonizers made it illegal for practitioners to use their magic. And when Zen saw the mark on her arm, he's like, I think that mark is magic. You're a practitioner and your mom left you a whole lot of magic on that mark. So they kind of go on this quest to try to take down the Atlantean colonizers. This next one is probably what I'm most excited for, and it comes out January 10th, and it is Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, the sequel to Ninth House. I'm so excited for this one. Ninth House is one of my favorite reads of 2022. I'm absolutely obsessed with Darlington. I cannot wait to see what the hell happens because Ninth House kind of ends on a cliffhanger, and I really need to know what is going on with that ending. I have a feeling that a lot of this book is gonna have an interesting setting, a different setting. But I've been stalking Leigh Bardugo's Instagram because she's been posting like edits of like the aesthetic of this book. I'm so excited. This next book also comes out on January 10th, and it is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, written by Heather Fawcett. This one's like a fantasy romance. Emily Wilde is this grumpy professor at Cambridge who teaches fairy folklore. That sounds so cool. Like, imagine taking a class called fairy folklore because fairies are real. I would absolutely love to take that class. But anyways, she's writing the first encyclopedia about fairy folklore. So she goes up north to this little small town to do a little bit more research for her encyclopedia, and she is on a mission. When she got there, she knows what she needs to get done. She just wants to be in and out of there. She does not want to dilly-dally. She does not want to interact with the locals. She doesn't care. But when she got there, she meets this man who is apparently her academic rival. His name is Wendell Brambleby, and he's the complete opposite of her. He has managed to charm the locals, and he's kind of getting in the way of her little research. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of academic rivals to lover situation between the two of them, and I'm so excited because of this fairy very researched. That sounds so interesting. Next is The Fraud Squad by Kyla Zhao. This one comes out on January 17th, and it kind of gives off a little bit of Crazy Rich Asian vibes just because it is set in the Singaporean high society. It follows this girl Shannon, whose dream job is to become the editor-in-chief of this high society magazine, but she does not come from a rich background. She feels like she doesn't really have an in, except her co-worker and friend is actually rich, and she meets this guy Timothy, who happens to be one of the most famous rich sons of the Singapore high society. He seems to be that typical rich boy who kind of shuns the lifestyle type of character. Her co-worker and Timothy team up to help Samantha get in with the rich and rub elbows with the rich. Anya lets her borrow her designer clothes, and Timothy invites her as his plus one to all of the events. It sounds like it's going to be a fun drama-filled time, which I'm all for. Next, we have How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This one also comes out on January 17th. I've actually never read a Grady Hendrix before, but I've been hearing really great things about his writing, and this one really caught my attention because it is set during the COVID lockdowns. I don't think I've ever read a book that is set during COVID lockdowns, especially not one where COVID and the lockdowns actually kind of play a big role in the story. This one follows these estranged siblings whose parents pass away during the tail end of the pandemic. They're both also kind of struggling to get by because of the economic repercussions of this pandemic, so they're forced to get together to sell their parents' house because they need the money. But this house has a lot of secrets. As you can tell from the title, it's most likely going to be haunted, and I guess like in this process it kind of digs up some childhood traumas and memories associated with this house. It sounds like it's going to be a psychological horror type of book. I love those types of horrors that get in your head. Those are my favorite types. And then of course I have Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare, which comes out on January 31st. This is the final book in the Last Hours trilogy, which I'm actually not caught up on. I haven't read the first two books, but it doesn't mean I'm any less excited about a new Shadowhunter book. Of course, I need to go read the first two books so I can jump in on this one right away because I've been hearing amazing things about this series. I'm always going to be excited for any Shadowhunter book that she puts out. I'm really sad that she announced that the series that comes after The Last Hours is going to be the final Shadowhunter series that she's going to put out, but I'm ready for her other works, which, spoiler alert, there's going to be another Cassandra Clare book in this list. Next, we have Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. This is the final installment in the Heartstopper graphic novel series. I just really want to see how Nick and Charlie's story is wrapped up. They both have gone through it, and I think they deserve a nice happy ending with a little bow on top. These graphic novels are always such a fun time. And then I have The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshani Chokshi. I actually don't know too much about this one except that it's this gothic, romantic, magical realism book. I think it follows a newlywed couple who for some reason have to move to the wife's old childhood home, and in this childhood home the husband meets his wife's best friend's ghost. I don't know, it sounds interesting, and I've been hearing really great things about this author's writing. This one comes out on February 14th. And then we have The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This one comes out on March 7th. Amina Al-Sarafi is one of the most notorious pirates of the Indian Ocean, and she's ready to retire. She's ready to hang the hat and spend the rest of her life chilling on a beach, sipping on a pina colada. I don't know what pirates do when they retire, but she's ready. She's done with this life until an old family friend contacts her because their daughter went missing. So she was like, fine, as a one last favor for this family friend, I'm gonna go on one more mission to go save their daughter. She thought that it was gonna be like this easy, quick mission, but as it turns out, it's a lot more complicated than what she had originally imagined. I don't know, I love pirate stories, so it should be fun, especially because it's a female pirate. We love that. And then I have The Foxglove King by Hannah Witten. This one also comes out on March 7th. This one's a fantasy romance that follows this woman who has the ability to raise the dead, which is kind of this coveted and very rare power to have. When she was actually 13 years old, she had escaped a cult who was kind of using her for her powers, and she's been running living from them for like 10 years. So she's 23 years old now. The king heard about her powers and he was like, I need you to bring that girl to me because I need to use her powers for whatever. And because of this, these people that she was running away from found out and they're starting to close in on her, and her life is possibly being threatened by these people. And she's now living at the palace with the prince who is annoying her. I think there's going to be a forbidden enemies to lovers romance between her and the prince. Next we have Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. This one's an interesting one. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure how much I'm gonna like this one, but I'm still really excited to see what R.F. Kuang does with this story. It's about this white girl who witnessed her Asian best friend die in this tragic accident. And of course the first thing that she does is steal said best friend's manuscript. So she takes this manuscript, edits it, and sends it to her publisher. She basically tells her publisher that this is her work, but she also wants to use a racially ambiguous pen name and a very racially ambiguous photo, which basically makes it seem like she's Asian. So she's kind of Asian fishing, I guess. Because the subject matter of said book that she stole is about the Chinese laborers' contribution to the British and French forces during World War I or something of that sort, but it's basically about a white girl taking credit and plagiarizing the work of an Asian woman. And I guess it's supposed to be some commentary about the erasure of people of color in the publishing industry, which sounds interesting. But I have heard some reviews come in from people who got the arc of this book, and a lot of people say that it's very meta. And I'm personally not the biggest fan of contemporary meta literature, so I'm not sure how meta it's gonna be. So I'm a little bit worried about that part, but everything else sounds exciting and I really enjoy R.F. Kuang's writing, so I'm still excited to see how I'm gonna like this one. And then we have Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. As long as Ali Hazelwood is willing to put out these STEMinist novels, I'm gonna continue reading them. I don't really care how similar they are from each other. Plus, the love interest in this one finally doesn't look like Adam Driver. That's at least a plus, right? This is kind of almost giving a mashup of The Love Hypothesis and Love on the Brain, because it's academic rivals to lovers and fake dating. But my favorite part of this one actually is that she's a theoretical physicist and he's an experimental physicist, and they're academic rivals. There's a lot of really big egos in STEM, especially on high-level STEM fields, and the theorist versus experimentalist drama has been a thing for a while now, and I'm really interested to see how she's gonna portray that in a rom-com. Next is What Happens After Midnight by K.L. Walther. This is the same author as The Summer of Broken Rules, which I really enjoyed. This is also set in a boarding school. This is our second boarding school book here. This follows Lily, who's currently a senior, and she's kind of worried that she's missed out on all of the fun times in high school since she spent all of it doing everything by the book and just being such a goody two-shoes. So when she got this invitation from the anonymous school prankster to help him set up the senior prank, she was like, I'll do it, because she saw that as her chance to finally stop being a goody two-shoes for once and do something fun, until she finds out that this anonymous prankster is actually her ex-boyfriend Taggart. I think it's going to be some sort of second chance romance, which isn't usually my cup of tea, but I'm still really excited because it sounds like there's going to be a lot of shenanigans here. And then I have Never a Hero by Vanessa Len. This is the sequel to Only a Monster, which is this YA time traveling fantasy. But honestly, I'm just really curious to see where the romance goes in this one, and also because the first book ends in kind of a really big cliffhanger. Last but definitely not least, I have Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. This one comes out on October 10th. I am so freaking excited because not only is this going to be her first book that's not part of the Shadowhunter Chronicles, but it's also her first adult high fantasy novel. Cassandra Clare writing a non-Shadowhunter book and a high fantasy book. I am so excited. She's giving us 2 books this year. She's spoiling us. This one is about Kel, who was raised to be the sword catcher for the prince, which basically means he's supposed to catch the sword for the prince, aka he's supposed to die for this prince. He's trained to be the body double, so whenever they go out or whatever, he like dresses up as the prince and pretends to be the prince, so whenever there's an assassination attempt, they attempt it on him. That's literally his entire purpose, is to be the target for the prince. the people who practice magic are kind of kept in this walled area far away from the city, and they're not allowed to leave except for Lynn because she's a doctor, so she can go into the city, do her healing, and then she needs to go back to her walled city because they just can't have people with magic running around apparently. After like this failed assassination attempt on the prince, Kel and Lynn cross paths. I'm assuming they hit it off. They're not really allowed to be together because she has magic and she can't even really leave unless it's working. He can't fall in love because he needs to go die for the prince instead. It sounds really good because honestly I will read anything that Cassandra Clare puts out. As much as I love the Shadowhunter world, I have always been really curious to see what else she has in store for us. I believe in this woman's ability to create a rich world and beautiful characters and tell a wonderful story about them. Let me know what your guys' most anticipated releases are of the year. Are any of them on my list? If they're not on my list, let me know what they are. I would love to go check them out. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, do your thing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.